Welcome to Startup to Success with Maria. I have a very special guest today, David Anthony Schroeder, who is a chronic pain survivor, helping chronic pain sufferers live. He is one of the nation's foremost advocates for the use of CBD for therapeutic pain management. He is a public speaker, global educator, and an author. David, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh my God, I am so beyond excited to interview you all about CBD. But before we begin, before we even dive into this amazing topic, I want to know what inspired you to become even an author, to write a book about CBD.
Well, I didn't have any plans to really write a book. I did not have that intention. Basically, when I was around 4 or 5, the doctors had diagnosed me as being hyperactive. And being hyperactive, I need high octane activities to kind of scrub off all of that extra energy that I have. I can't sit still. And so out of being hyperactive, I've been involved in a lot of high activity or high octane sports like mountain biking,
Wow.
skiing, martial arts, hiking, sparring, a variety of things. But all of those things come with injuries. And so you've heard of economic events, you've
Yep.
heard of catastrophic events. Well, David has pain events. And so a pain event will last, maybe a couple of weeks to several months, and in some cases, years. And so about 6 years ago, I was introduced to CBD. And a gentleman, he manufactured it in his home, and it was a paint stick. He turned me on to it and said, "Here, try this." Now, in this particular event, this pain event, my neck and my shoulder are locked up. So I look like I'm a robot. I'm like, "Hey, everybody, how you doing?" I can't move. And so I take the CBD pain stick, I look at it, and Maria, honestly, I thought it was a joke.
Yeah.
I laughed. I said, "I've tried everything under the sun. This is going to be nothing." Well, to my own surprise, I was so glad to be wrong. So I took his pain stick, did the left side of my neck and my shoulder, and within about 45 minutes, I began to feel some relief. So instead of being like this, I was able to be, hey, and within an hour, hour and a half, my pain went probably from about an 8 down to maybe about a 6. And so that was my first experience. Had that first experience been a bad experience, I would have poo-pooed CBD, and no matter what you said, CBD would never come into my realm again. Well, I was pleasantly surprised to be wrong, and I was happy to be wrong because I found some pain relief. From that, I started doing a kind of a deep dive over like the next 3 years, more and more and more digging in. Okay, so what is this stuff? How does it work? I'm aware of cannabis. In my youth, I used cannabis in place of Ritalin because they had prescribed me Ritalin. And Ritalin is like a speed that supposedly slows you down and turns you into a couch potato. I can't stand being a couch potato. And so when I tried the CBD and I found the pain relief, I was like, wow, this stuff is really cool. And then digging in, being fully aware of cannabis and having used cannabis in the past, this hemp plant turned my life upside down now.
Yeah.
And so out of all of my research, I'm reading medical studies, I'm reading articles. And the one thing that I found on the internet during my research was that there were a lot of people putting out just little bits of information, but behind that, there was a product for sale.
Yeah.
And so I couldn't find anything. It wasn't until I really began to dig into the medical studies to understand how the stuff worked. And then out of that, I just had so much stuff that it just kind of made sense to put together something so I could teach others how to find the same relief that I had. And that's how I ended up with the book, 7 Ways to Manage Pain with CBD.
Oh
And
my,
I can show you, this is
oh,
kind of a copy of it, if you can see it without the light, but
I love it. And I love how you simplified it to seven ways. It's not overwhelming, because I think
right,
I've come across a few books where I just felt like they were overwhelming, not simple enough to make the average person understand what you're talking about.
right.
I would love to sell your book at my flagship store, actually, at the Roma Leaf store, because a lot of the
Wow.
customers that come into our store, they want to get more educated about CBD, and to have a book like yours would be amazing. Um, wow, what an inspiring story. And I can resonate with that, because I started with my CBD brand my journey was somewhat similar to, I got diagnosed with hemiplegic migraines when I was
Oh my
my
goodness.
early 20s. Yes, and they gave
Sorry.
me this prescription medicine called Elavil, which turned me into a vegetable,
Yes.
literally vegetable, that I would just sit and not be able to do anything on the couch all day. I took it for a week. I hated it, and I'm a very hyper excited, like I'm full of energy, and for me to
Yes.
be this was just not gonna make it. So I stopped taking it, and I went to the doctor and I said, I don't want to take any medication. How can I prevent getting my awful migraine attacks, which could lead potentially to a stroke, because half
Yes.
my body goes numb?
Yes.
So my doctor said, just exercise, 5, 6 times a week, and just hope that you won't get a stroke.
Oh
That's
my
it, if you
goodness.
choose not to take the medication. And
Yes.
for 20 years, I was lucky. I would get every quarter, I would get my migraines. Sometimes if I was under a lot of stress, it would happen, once a month, and the numbness would occur. But luckily, I never had a stroke. But it wasn't until I went through an experience with my dad where he got diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, and
Oh
he
no.
did not want to take opioids. He said, whatever life I have left, opioids are making me angry, and I don't want you guys remembering me this way. And so he stopped taking medication. And then I remember a friend of his came to me and said, can I get him CBD? And I said, what is that? This was a little over 4 years ago. I was like, what is that? What is CBD? I just never really got into it and researched, I mean, I'm familiar with marijuana, but not
Right.
to that extent. And long story short, he got it from my dad. And unfortunately, my dad didn't get to use it much. He had like a week or so, and he went back to the hospital. They put him back on morphine. And that bottle that was for him, one day after he passed away, I tried it for my migraine, and my life changed. From that moment on, I was just like, wow, this is a miracle. My migraines still come. I'm not saying it prevents the migraine from happening,
Right.
but it prevents the numbness, which
Yes.
then prevents the stroke. And so for me, it was life changing. But I had an issue finding products that were consistent in the marketplace, that every
That's a
bottle
big
would
problem.
consistently work. And so, and I didn't want THC in there, because I own a marketing agency that caters to the tech startup space, and we spend
Yes.
millions of dollars in advertising for them. So any mistakes on our end would cost me a fortune. And,
Yes, it
and so
would.
I had to be very, sober and alert, but yet. And so long story short, I launched Roma Leaf back in 2019, but it was very slow. It wasn't launched for the consumers. Honestly, we started it for me to be able to have a product that I could rely on. And then I had a few pharmacy friends and chiropractors who said, listen, we know that you take this serious, you put it through a lot of testing. Let me sell some. And so it just kind of evolved. And then we launched
Good for you.
online store, and we launched the flagship store in Studio City about 8, 9 months ago. So
Congratulations.
thank you. It just, the brand evolved, but out of my own need. But I'll tell you, education is lacking. And I have spent a lot of time educating. We've done workshops. Especially our retail store has this beautiful back area. It's a huge backyard that can facilitate 70 people. So we do a lot of workshops with doctors and talk about CBD to educate people. And we don't try to sell anything. If anything, we give samples and we want them to try it and see how it helps. But education has been the missing piece in this industry, because a lot of people just don't believe in it because they might have tried something that wasn't good and they just gave up on the idea and think it's just a fad. But then, so I want to talk about the education aspect. And I know you have a bit of not a bit, but you have the marketing background as well, which I love. But when it comes to marketing CBD, when it comes to promoting CBD, obviously there are a lot of restrictions, right? Like CBD is sadly blocked by Google and Facebook, Instagram. So, and you have this amazing book now that everybody should be aware of, and everybody should be buying to get educated and then make the decision, right?
Right.
So what are some of the ways that you've been able to, because sadly, if the book has the word CBD, then you can't really do Google ads, right? I mean,
Yeah, so Facebook and Google, and it's the same for Amazon.
yeah,
Amazon, they'll allow me to sell the book, but I can't advertise it on the platform. I know that Amazon now is working with the federal government to try and flip that schedule over. They want to actually begin to have cannabis-based products and CBD on the website. And because cannabis has turned into, or the medical cannabis industry has already turned into a multi-billion-dollar, just in like the 20 plus states that it's in right now.
Yeah.
It's a multi-billion-dollar thing. And I have no problem with people making money. Money answers all things. If you don't have money, you can't market. If you don't have money, you can't make a product. If you don't have money, you can't start a product. You need money. And even if you want to do compassion, you need money so that you can buy the goods that you want to give away in a compassion program to those who can't afford it. So money answers all things.
Right.
And now one of the big things that works for me, and one of the things that I do for my clients, is email marketing. Nice. Email marketing is a great way to get your product out there. There's not a lot of regulations and rules against doing email marketing. So depending on the publisher, like I'll use Newsmax, for instance. Newsmax allows CBD products to be published on their website and through their email program. So you can buy, you purchase the list, and now Newsmax is not cheap. It's about $8,000 to go out to their list. What you do is you put together your email, your graphics, your content, your headline. You have that, and then that goes out to their subscriber base. And now Newsmax does have a really interactive subscriber base, and they interact a lot, and they work on their list. So I work with Newsmax frequently, not just for me, but for a lot of other clients as well. But other publishers like CNN and Breitbart and maybe Glenn Beck, and maybe there's so many newsletters out there that you can advertise in. And it's just a matter of having the marketing funds to be able to do that. But there's a way to get into people's email boxes. Seniors especially, seniors really deal with a lot of pain, joint pain, muscular pain, pain from aging. And then you have cancer patients who struggle with pain from chemotherapy and things like that. So CBD helps answer those issues, but to get it into their email box, it's just a matter of going through publishers and buying the list and sending out email. That's one of the bigger ways. I'm also checking out Hulu right now. It seems to me that Hulu is very friendly towards us also, depending on the product. And for as little as $500, you can also get on to doing advertising with Hulu. And then as far as other networks, there are other networks where you can actually, what's a network that I can think of off the top of my head? Basically, how they work is, you put in your link, you put in some content, maybe some pictures, and you see them on the bottom of all kinds of websites and emails where you've got all kinds of people advertising things. Those work pretty well to drive traffic to your website or to an offer or to an Amazon page. So there are some ways to get out there that you can still advertise and not be blocked by Google and Amazon and all these other companies that they're afraid of being shut down by the feds.
Yeah.
So right now, even though CBD is legal in every state except for I think South Dakota, who says we don't want to make it legal here, but on the federal level, CBD is legal, hemp is legal. And so companies are afraid to kind of go against the grain of what has been the law for the last 70 or 80 years.
Yeah.
But there are some ways to go about, getting your product out there. And I think for me, email is probably one of the biggest ones. TV is also, but it's so expensive.
Yeah.
It's if you can afford the production of a 30 or 60-minute commercial or a 2-minute commercial, buying the airtime,
Yeah.
That's another good route.
Yeah. We got really lucky because of the workshops that we were doing. And it was our way to give back to the community. We got lucky that Fox LA was interested in our story, and basically they did a segment where they covered the workshops. They helped us promote the workshop, also interviewed me and asked all these. It's like a 3-minute segment that later on, I have a friend who owns a PR agency, and I've been on and off, I kept thinking about hiring her. And then when I did that, she's like, you don't need to hire me. That was a $58,000 media value that you just from that one segment that you ended up pitching to them. But and that helped with sales tremendously. And until now, I feel that the fact that we were featured on Fox LA, people, there's that trust factor. They know that, okay, well, if you were, but I think trust is the other thing. And I feel like, and as a consumer myself, before I launched my own brand, my issue with the CBD industry was that a lot of the brands out there, you couldn't tell who the man or the woman behind the brand was. And that scared me. That really scared me. And it made me think, well, if you're scared to say who the owner is, like if you're not going out there and saying you're the owner and you're the face of the brand, then I don't know if I want to trust your product and take it, especially when I'm sublingually taking it.
I agree.
It's not like a book where you don't like it, stop reading it. It's actually a product that you're taking. And so for me, it was a bit challenging to notice that problem and yet be able to comfortably address it in a way where I was going to put myself out there and say, I'm going to be the face of my company. And it's because I own a marketing agency, and one of my clients is New York Times, and I have a lot of high profile clients. So it was always, what would my clients think? I don't want them, are they going to drop my agency if they find out I have my own CBD brand? And then when the pandemic hit, I just stopped caring. I was like, I don't care. People are anxious. People are dealing with so much anxiety. I'm going to just help them promote the brand, be the face to help others know that it exists and they can find better ways to solve their anxiety issues or pain relief or whatever it may be. I focus a lot on anxiety because I feel like women, especially after 40, a lot of them deal with anxiety for some weird reason. But going back to your book, tell me a little bit about the book. How did you mentioned in the beginning that there was so much information, so much medical research being done. And I know about the medical research because of the workshop that we do with a lot of psychiatrists and doctors who bring on the research and share it with us. And a lot of them are in phase 3 and 4, which is so promising. It's so exciting to see CBD in those phases. But going back to your book, with all the information that's out there, how did you come up with a simpler way to present CBD, the 7 ways, basically?
So it boiled down to, from history, I learned from history that big wars are, when they're fought, those that are fought on multiple fronts generally win.
Mm.
And so for me, I started taking, I tried CBD oil and it helped. I mean, I did get some relief. It wasn't until I realized that if I combined a topical with some CBD oil, now I'm fighting a multi-war or a multi-front war. And now all of a sudden my pain, my pain comes from maybe an 8.5 down to maybe a 6. And then I do a topical, now I'm down to a 4. And I'm like, wow, now I can, yeah, I'm still sore, but now I can move. Okay. And so then, out of the reason why I came up with the 7 ways is there really are basically 7 ways to use CBD. Some of them, one is just down your throat, one is under your tongue, one is through topicals, one is through smoking or inhaling or vaping. Another is by taking CBD isolate, sprinkling it on your food, or you can take it and you can take isolate and you can make your own products.
Yeah.
And so when I started going through my own research and I started finding the different ways that have the best impact on your body, and for me, pain, when I started writing down my information, basically I couldn't find any other ways other than 7 ways. And so it made sense. Oh, 7 ways to manage pain with CBD.
Yeah.
And now here's the one thing that's important to know about CBD. A lot of people will come to me and say, well, Dave, I tried it and it didn't work, or I gave it a shot and nothing. So my first question to them is, okay, what did you use? How long did you use it for? Did you do any research on that product? And so let me give you a little illustration about how to use CBD. I want you to see a general. He's sitting on his horse looking over his battlefield, okay? And so he sees that on his left flank that his enemy has penetrated into his territory. So in the wisdom of a general, what does he do? He puts together a regiment of men and sends them over to the west flank. And now during that battle, some are killed, some are wounded, some run out of ammunition, and some run away, okay? Now the next day, the general looking over his battlefield, he sees, oh, okay, well, I've got more men there today than I did yesterday. He sends another regiment over there to block that hole. And now, of course, during that battle, some are killed, some are wounded, some run out of ammunition, and some run away. But after about a week's worth of time, the general keeps sending troops over there. Now that where that flank was broken by the enemy, it's now plugged, and now he's got the enemy on the run. The same thing goes for you. You have your own battlefield, and you are your own general. When you're taking your CBD, you're sending your own regiment of troops onto your battlefield. Now, here's the thing, CBD doesn't last all day. You have to use it continually. So let's say in some cases it might work 3 hours. For some people, and depending on the pain and the location, it might last 6 hours. Some people, it might last 12 hours. Once you know once you start using it in multiple ways, how long it lasts, what you're doing is each time you're sending new troops onto your battlefield. During that battle, some are wounded, some are killed, some run away, some run out of ammunition. So what do? You send in fresh troops. You are the general. So when you are working with CBD, one, you need to go to a reputable person who is making CBD. Every company should be giving you a test result that shows you what was in that plant that was processed, what's in the product, how high does it have minerals, does it have metals, does it have poisons, does it have what is the stuff we spray to kill bugs? Pesticides, thank you. Yeah. Does it have any of that stuff? Yeah. It will also tell you how much CBD content is in there, or other things that are in there.
Or even THC. If you don't want THC, you need to make sure that the lab report shows that there is no THC.
Exactly. So those things are important. So in the book, I teach you how to read your COA.
Amazing.
And, you know, and actually I have a chapter in there written by a testing facility back in North Carolina, G2 Analytical. And I love them. They helped me with that because I'm a technical guy,
Yeah.
but you know, when a lab is willing to help you put together some information to educate people on how to read the testing report, that's even better than what I could have come up with.
Right.
And so those things are important. Now, the next question I always ask is, okay, so how long did you take it for?
Right.
Oh, I tried it once and nothing happened.
It's not-
Wrong answer. Doctors tell us and researchers tell us that CBD begins to have its fullest impact within 3 to 5 days of taking it. So if you take your CBD regularly for at least 5 days, you're going to find if your pain is like this, over time, it's going to begin to gradually come down, and then you're going to have control over it. And so then you just keep sending your troops onto your battlefield every time. So if you're documenting it, I talk about in the book, document what you do. Get yourself a health journal. Document, you know, what you're using, how long it lasts, and then when you need to take the next dose. And so when I start showing people, okay, you need to actually use it for a few days,
Right.
then they get to have the aha moments. And then the other thing is, oil should have, not all of them, but many of them will put an expiration date on their oil or on the bottle. Oil, it goes bad within about 12 months, and you can taste the rancid flavor.
Yes.
And so it does lose its potency. So you have to be aware of these things when you're using CBD, because there is no one size fits all.
Right. Oh,
So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
I love the analogy used on the battlefield. I think, and to your point, a lot of people try it and they expect to feel the result right away. And
Yes.
like, you just, this is a natural product. You need to let it bind with your body. And our body produces cannabinoids,
Yes, it does.
and so, sometimes I tell people that it's when you take CBD externally, it actually sends a message to your brain to produce, to start getting balanced and start producing its own cannabinoids. Wow. Tell me a little bit about the research that you came across. I know that from our workshops, we've learned a lot working with the doctors, especially psychiatrists, about anxiety and how CBD most likely, based on the research that we're seeing, will be replacing Xanax and a lot of depressants very soon, which I can't wait. But I think we have about a year or two. Some of the research is still not completed. They need a couple of years to complete the research to confidently say that. But what's your thought on anxiety? I know pain relief is huge, but pain is huge. It's a big problem. But then anxiety, due to the pandemic, has become a huge problem.
So I know several people who have used it for anxiety. I haven't really suffered with that issue, so I haven't really pursued that avenue, but I can share an experience with my wife's best friend. Her son, throughout his life, he's never been able to hold down a job, could never keep a girlfriend, always feels like he's coming out of his skin. When he found out I was writing the book, he told me, he said, "David, you're not going to believe this." He said, "I take about 40 milligrams of CBD every day." And he said, "I take 25 in the morning, and if I need the extra 15 later on in the day, I'll take an additional." He said, "All of a sudden, my life went from everything encroaching onto me, and I'm like, what do I do?" to like, "Oh, this is what life looks like. Oh my gosh. Oh, you have a problem? Talk to the hand." He had a complete flip over from his life. So now he's been with the same girl for many years. They got married a couple years ago. He's had the same job now for several years. His life is in control and he has balance. When he goes without, he feels the anxiety coming on. And so he goes, and he's got a good reputable person that he goes to get it from. I've met others in the cannabis industry in Los Angeles who have suffered with anxiety, that have made their own products from doing their own research. And they tell me the same thing. Life feels like it's caving in on them.
Yeah.
And, the drugs that they take don't help them. It paralyzes them. It puts them in a place where they feel like, I'd rather be dead.
Yeah.
The one person told me that. And when they start doing the CBD, all of a sudden it's like these blinders come off, and now they go from being like to
Yeah.
like, wow, life has got something here. I can enjoy my life. So it has a big impact on people with anxiety. And there's one other thing that I didn't mention was that, it also, you have to work on finding the right dosage amount for
Yeah.
you. What's good for me doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be right for you. And one of the things that I tell people is, for every 10 pounds of your body weight, take 1 to 6 milligrams of CBD. And in there, you can find, your sweet spot.
Yeah.
If you find that it's not enough, then you're going to want to add a little more.
Yeah.
If you find that you're doing all right, you might be just fine. But that's a process. The FDA, their job is to regulate food
Right.
and all those things that, what the daily average intake should be for your vitamins and for your nutrients and stuff like that. Nothing like that exists for CBD. And so it really is still the wild, wild west.
Yeah.
But with a little knowledge, a person can go and do some research. They can find a good CBD provider, take the CBD, monitor what's going on in their body with their journal,
Right.
and keep track of how many milligrams that they take. And they will begin to find a sweet spot for themselves, whether it's anxiety, whether it's seizures, whether it's for pain, whether it's for other ailments. They will find a place that works for them.
Yeah.
And then all they have to do is adjust from time to time. Today, might be beautiful. Tomorrow you might wake up and then you've got a flat tire. You got to get your kids to school. Your boss is yelling at you because you forgot to turn in some paperwork. And it's like,
Yeah.
okay, well, normally I take 25 milligrams. Maybe today I'm going to take 30.
A little bit more. Yeah.
And then, so you can play with it. It's not a one size fits all, but your size, once you find it, it will work for you.
And what I love about it, that it's not addicting.
Yes.
I've never ever come across anything that is seriously not addicting. And people question that sometimes. They're like, how can it not be addicting? I'm like, it's not addicting. If you take it today, your body's not going to crave it tomorrow. You're just
Right.
going to want to take it because you want that feeling, but it's not like a glass of wine where it becomes this habit where you just want to sip on a glass of wine at the same time every night. It's just amazing.
Yes.
Oh my God, David, so much to talk about. I can't believe we're getting closer to the end of our show, but please remind our listeners where they can get a copy of your book.
Okay, so there's a couple places they can go. They can go to my website, which is thecbdwriter.com. And it's spelled just like it sounds, the THE writer, WRITER.com. On there, if you want, I have a free checklist to help you purchase your CBD. It tells you everything. If it's missing something, don't get that. You can also buy it on Amazon. You can buy it on barnesandnoble.com. You can also buy it on walmart.com. And so those are some places where you can pick up the book. Amazing. As well.
Amazing. Wow, David, we have very limited time and I have so many questions to ask you, but I do want to ask one question. If you were to tell all the people out there that have been hesitant to try CBD and they just find that there isn't enough, they go online and their complaint is that there's so much information and then all this different articles upsell me things or take me to another tricky website that sells me other products. A lot of the complaints that I hear is mostly I'm not able to get trustworthy education. And it feels like your book is the answer, in my opinion, to that, where a lot of the complaints I've been hearing is, oh, everybody's trying to sell something if they're educating. If you were to talk to these people, what would you say to them as an author?
Well, you can definitely get the book, 7 Ways to Manage Pain with CBD. Um, I'll tell you this. Let me read this to you. This is what Dr. Michelle Weiner, she is a double board certified interventional pain management and physical medicine and rehabilitation doctor. She said, American biologist Bruce Lipton said, your perspective is limited by how much you know. Expand your knowledge and you will transform your mind. If you're looking to CBD for pain management and know absolutely nothing, this book will expand your knowledge and transform your mind. Get 7 Ways to Manage Pain with CBD and add it to your library. This is an incredible reference and will put you years ahead of most medical doctors. So that's just one. There's several doctors on the back of the book.
Wow.
The reason why it works is because our bodies have an endocannabinoid system. As you mentioned earlier, our brains release cannabinoids. And it's amazing that on this planet, there are 2 plants that have similar cannabinoids that are released by our brain. And when they're released into our body, it brings health, it brings healing, it brings balance, and it releases and reduces pain because it's very anti-inflammatory. And it helps in so many areas. It doesn't cover every single medical issue, but the most important thing is find a reliable source of education, and don't be afraid to go to these medical study sites and type in the word CBD and see what they say about your particular ailment.
What's a good site that you would recommend for them to go to, besides obviously reading your book, which you've done most of the work for them, and it's going to save them tons of hours, and
I've got about, I don't know, 20 or 30 studies in the back of the book, but nih.gov, you can just type in CBD medical studies on Google, and it will give you, peer-reviewed medical study websites that you can go. Now, understand, some of these things are really hard to read. It's a lot of information, but if you read the introduction and read the conclusion at the end, it will give you a good idea of what they're saying throughout the entire article and the study. But that's probably the best place to go, is just do a CBD medical studies, and maybe include, if you're dealing with anxiety, type in anxiety, and you will find a whole list of studies that you can go and review on your own, so you can kind of get educated and get up to speed.
I love it. Thank you, David. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you for sharing so much wisdom and all the research and your experience. That's, it's so inspiring to know that you are actually using it and you are seeing results, and you dove into it, because a lot of times it's amazing. When we hear something from somebody, the first question that I tend to ask is that person using it, or are they just talking about what they read and learned and researched and so on? So I love that you're using it, and you're a big advocate. And I know that you do speaking engagements also. So I would love for our listeners to know that if they have workshops, which I'm actually thinking of already, if we have any events.
End of March, the CBD Expo will be here in March.
Nice.
In Dallas. I think it's the last weekend of March here in Dallas, Texas. I'll be speaking at the CBD Expo.
Amazing.
And so if you are local to Dallas, or in the northern Texas area, the CBD Expo will be here then, and you'll be able to see all kinds of speakers talking about CBD, how to use it, where to use it, why to use it, where to get more information, and you can speak with them afterwards and pick their brains.
I love it. I love it. And I would love to collaborate with you and have you join some of our workshops and webinars in Los Angeles specifically. We can always do it remotely if you don't end up coming to LA, but wow. Thank you so much, David. And again, one more time, if you can remind our listeners where they can get a hold of you, where they can get a copy of your book.
Absolutely. So you can reach me through the cbdwriter.com. Again, if you want to download the checklist, it's absolutely free. I don't sell anything. I don't send anything. I just send you the checklist. It includes an article of the 6 reasons why CBD doesn't work. And so you can kind of figure out where you are in there, and then tweak your regimen so that you can begin to get some relief. You can also buy the book on Amazon, on barnesandnoble.com, and on walmart.com.
I love it. I love it. Show us the book one more time.
Absolutely.
And the title, 7 Ways to Manage Pain with CBD by David Anthony Schroeder. Thank you so
Yes.
much, David. Thank you. Pleasure
Thank you.
speaking with you. I would love to have you back on the show again. I literally half my questions. We ran out of time, unfortunately, but thank you.
Absolutely. We'll see you soon.